Today, we're diving into a trait that about 1 in 5 people have, but it's something that's so often misunderstood. We're going to be talking all about what it really means to be a highly sensitive person, or HSP for short.
So let me just start by asking you this. Do you ever feel like you're experiencing the world on a different frequency? Like you're processing everything around you on a much deeper level? If you're sitting there nodding your head right now, then you are in the right place.
Okay, so let's get a really clear definition on the table. A highly sensitive person, an HSP, isn't just someone who's overly emotional. It's not a flaw, it's a personality trait. It basically means your brain is naturally wired to process information, sights, sounds, emotions, social cues, you name it, on a way deeper, more detailed level than most other people.
And you know what? This deep processing comes with some pretty incredible superpowers. HSPs are often incredibly perceptive, deeply empathetic, and they have a really strong intuition. They tend to be super self-aware, emotionally intelligent, and so often they're bursting with creativity and passion. But as you can probably guess, feeling everything so intensely has its challenges too. First up, let's talk about sensory overload. You know that feeling? When it seems like someone has turned the volume of the entire world up to 11, and you just feel completely overwhelmed.
For an HSP, an environment that a lot of people might find really exciting can actually be a one-way ticket to a total system shutdown. Think about a crowded bar with TVs blasting, or a huge noisy street festival. All of that noise, all that movement, it can be incredibly overstimulating.
This really just sums it up perfectly. When an HSP decides to skip a big concert or a loud party, it's not because they're trying to be boring or a downer, not at all. It's a really important act of self-preservation. It's about knowing your limits so you can avoid a complete burnout.
And the sensory stuff doesn't stop with just loud places. Since their systems are basically working overtime processing everything, HSPs often find they absolutely cannot function without enough sleep. Deadlines and high-pressure situations can be seriously stressful. And maybe most importantly, they need that alone time to rest, to recover, and to recharge all of that mental and emotional energy they use up.
All right, so let's move from the sensory world to the emotional core of the HSP experience. We're talking about the reality of feeling everything, all the time, and feeling it with a whole lot of intensity.
You know, one of the defining features of an HSP is their incredible empathy. But that can also lead to feeling totally wiped out emotionally. I mean, if you spend your day absorbing your coworkers' stress, your friends' joy, and a stranger's frustration, by the time dinner rolls around, it can feel like you've been on a wild emotional roller coaster all day.
This emotional depth also means that painful feelings can really stick around. A breakup from a few months ago might still feel raw. A thoughtless comment can replay in your mind for days. And it also explains why so many HSPs have such a strong physical reaction to violence and cruelty. Even watching a graphic scene in a movie can be deeply disturbing.
So if any of this is starting to sound familiar, I just want you to take a second and really let this sink in. It's a quote from our source material, and it's so powerful. You're okay, and it's not weird. It's just high sensitivity. It's a fundamental part of who you are.
You know, the internal world of an HSP can be a pretty tough place sometimes. Because they process things so deeply, they can really beat themselves up over every tiny little mistake. They often hold themselves to these impossibly high standards, which means that nobody, and I mean nobody, is a tougher critic of an HSP than they are of themselves.
So we've touched on sensory intensity and emotional intensity. Now let's look at how all of this plays out in social situations, which, for a highly sensitive person, can be uniquely complex. HSPs are amazing at reading a room. Seriously, they notice the tiny shifts in someone's tone of voice, a fleeting facial expression, all these nonverbal cues that just fly right by most people. But what's the downside? Well, it can lead to overanalyzing everything, and sometimes turning a molehill into a mountain.
This sensitivity can create a few specific social hurdles. Criticism, even when it's meant to be helpful, can feel intensely personal. And because they feel other people's disappointment so deeply, it can be really hard for them to say no. And big changes, like a new job or a new city, that can be exhausting because there's so much new information to process just to feel comfortable.
So when you put all of these things together, the need for downtime, the big emotional reactions, that detailed analysis of every social interaction, the result so often is this profound feeling of being misunderstood by people who just aren't wired the same way.
But here's maybe the most important fact of all. If you feel this way, you are far from alone. High sensitivity is a totally normal, healthy trait that's found in about 20% of the population. Just think about that. That's 1 out of every 5 people you meet. It's not a flaw, it's not a disorder, it's just a vital part of human diversity.
And that brings us to the best part of this whole conversation. It's time to flip the script. It's time to reframe these challenges and look at the incredible light that comes with all of this perceived darkness.
I want you to think of it like this. The struggles we've been talking about, they're just 2 sides of the same coin. That tendency to get overwhelmed is directly linked to your incredible insightfulness. Those intense emotions, they are tied to your artistic sense, to your open-minded nature. They're connected. You can't have one without the other.
Because you feel things so deeply, you have this enormous capacity for the very things our world needs more of. That deep processing fuels profound compassion, a deep well of understanding for other people, and a genuine, powerful kindness.
And really, that's the ultimate takeaway. For all the challenges, for all the times you felt misunderstood, please know that your sensitivity, your empathy, your unique way of experiencing this world, it is a gift. Your very presence makes this world a better, kinder, and more thoughtful place.
So, I'll leave you with this to think about. How can all of us work to better embrace sensitivity? How can we start to value this powerful trait more both in ourselves and in the people around us? Thanks so much for joining me.